Hi everybody, welcome to the GenAI Nerd channel, and in this video I want to explain you how we can leverage a new approach called building LLM wikis to build what I would call an academic brain. And with an academic brain I mean an additional knowledge structure that will make it very easy for you to communicate and interact with a bundle of academic papers. And so in this video I will explain step by step how you can build this academic brain. So let's get started. Yes, and the first thing we need to do is to download a new application called Obsidian. This is fully for free, and Obsidian is actually a tool where we can store a lot of files that agents can use to easily help us executing certain tasks. So now you simply have to download Obsidian, and then I will show you how you can build your first what is called vault, and meaning a kind of a specific folder where we can store data that agents subsequently can use to execute tasks. Yes, so when you have downloaded Obsidian, you should see something like this, and then we can start creating a vault, and that will be the place where we store all the papers. And the easiest thing is to open an existing folder as a vault. And let me now first show you the folder that I have prepared to integrate in this vault. Yes, so here I have on my computer a folder called Recent GenAI Papers. And what did I do here? I simply collected a number of recent papers about GenAI in top management journals. I have actually a separate application that allows me to every day automatically screen whether new GenAI papers have emerged. I have a separate video about that I will add to the description. But so now I have identified these papers, and I stored actually these papers in a subfolder called raw. So if I go here, you can see I now have 5 PDFs, and these are simply academic papers. So these are in my subfolder. And here I have an additional file that is called agents.md. And let me briefly open this file so that you can show what this actually means. Yes, so this agents.md file is actually a simple text file that will explain the structure, the content, and the purpose of the wiki that I want to build. And the wiki is this kind of knowledge structure that I want to put on top of my academic papers. And this file I simply borrowed from another YouTube channel called Teacher Stack, and I adjusted it a bit to make it useful for academic papers. And so I will put in the descriptions a link to this file so that you can also use it as a starting point. And of course you can further fine-tune it if you want. But as you can see, it describes what will be the purpose of this wiki, what will be the purpose of this knowledge structure, what kind of folder structure do we want to build. And you see I already have my raw file, but then the agents will help me to build these are the additional subfolders that we need to build the wiki. And I have some additional instructions, and again, you can further fine-tune them as you want. But in my experience, this template will allow you to build already a very good wiki. So that's what we need in the folder. So we need our agents.markdown file, and we need a subfolder where we have the raw material. And now we can start building our wiki, and let me show you how you can do it. So now to really build my wiki, I rely on Codex from OpenAI, which is very similar to Claude Cowork in Claude. So it's up to you to decide whether you want to use Claude Cowork or Codex, but you need one of these tools. And here in Codex, I opened again the same folder. Yeah, so this folder, Recent GenAI Papers. And then I created a new thread. And then I simply wrote update wiki by analyzing the 5 academic papers in the folder raw. So that's the only thing I needed to do. And given that this agents.md folder gives all the instructions to start building the wiki, now Codex will start building the full wiki for me. And that means it will go into the papers, analyze them, identify concepts across the papers, and also tries to identify relationships. And subsequently, in my Obsidian vault, it will store all kinds of markdown files for all the concepts, all the papers, all the relationships, so that now I have there a kind of knowledge structure. Yeah, so you simply have to execute this prompt, and then it will start working for several minutes, and in the end, it will create for you a wiki that you can then explore in Obsidian. So let me show you how the final wiki then looks like in Obsidian. Yes, so now I'm back in my Obsidian, and now you will see, of course, I still have here my agents.md file. That's the file from which we started. I have still my raw data here. These are the 5 PDFs. But now we have an additional folder called wiki. And so here, based on my instructions, Codex has created additional MD files about particular concepts that have emerged in one or multiple papers. So for instance, we can see here that an important concepts across the papers that I've uploaded is GenAI adoption. And we can see here what does that mean. And here we can see the 2 papers where this concept was developed, and then this markdown file will give a kind of summary what we should know about this concept based on these 2 papers. So in that way, it builds for you actually an extensive knowledge layer on top of the raw data, in this case with all kinds of concepts. And of course, you can now further fine-tune the wiki. So if you know that in the papers there are concepts that the wiki did not yet identify, then you can go back to Codex and say, oh, please add these concepts, please optimize the wiki. All these things are possible, so then it will further fine-tune the wiki. You can also explore here the wiki as a knowledge graph. So if I click here, you will see now that for every concept, I have a node and we can immediately explore the connections between them. So if you're a fan of knowledge graphs, Obsidian actually automatically creates a knowledge graph for you. So this is how we can now create a knowledge structure on top of our raw papers. And now the good thing is that we can go back to our Codex environment and actually start communicating with this wiki. So let me show you how we can do it. So now I'm back in my Codex, and now I can go back to my folder where my wiki is stored, where my data are stored, and open a new thread. And now, for instance, I can ask, give me an overview of what we know about the productivity effects of GenAI based on the papers. And then I can press enter. And now it will go into my wiki structure, my knowledge layers, to identify the relevant papers, the relevant insights, and based on that, it will give me an answer. And given that we have now this wiki structure, it's actually very flexible in identifying relevant insights from the papers that we have. So also here, the risk of hallucination will actually be quite limited. And now we already get an answer. So now you see here that Codex is actually providing me an answer based on my wiki and the underlying data. And so now you can see that it starts to say what kind of evidence from the different papers we can find of productivity. And then, and that's again the nice thing of Codex or Cloud Cowork, I could now even immediately say, create for me a PowerPoint presentation summarizing these findings, and then it will, in the folder that I've created, immediately create a PowerPoint presentation that I can check. So now it will take a bit more time to build this PowerPoint presentation, but I can immediately show you then what you get as output. Yes, so now Codex has finished producing for me a PowerPoint presentation, and because I have a brand styler skill already defined in Codex, mainly that it needs to produce always PowerPoint sheets in the branding style of my university, it will normally have automatically also applied the brand style of my university. So now we can open in my folder the PowerPoint to see what has happened. So now I simply have to go to my folder again, and here I can open the PowerPoint. So let me show you how that looks like. Yes, and as I wanted, now I have already a first PowerPoint presentation about the productivity effects of generative AI based on these 5 recent papers. So let me make it a bit bigger here so that we can better see it. And you can also already see that it now applies a very specific layout. That's the layout that I defined in the brand styler skill. And now I already have quite a nice presentation. Here, for instance, I need to further update a bit the layout, but in general, with this straightforward prompt, I now already have a nice summary of what these papers tell me about productivity effects of GenAI. So I hope this video made it clear how we can now use LLM wikis to build academic brains. Now, this is still something in development, so these are also my first experiments. So please share your own experiences in the comments. It would be great to see how you are working with it, how you are making it even better, because this is really something in development. So thanks for your attention, and looking forward to see you again in another video. Bye!